Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Timeless Truths from the Bible. And we're on the subject of God here. We've already talked about the question, does the God of the Bible exist? And we came up with a resounding yes for that. And so we move on to another book that we've written on the subject of God. We call this What Everyone Needs to Know About God. And it is found, as well as all the rest of our books, on our website, Educating Our World, under the subject of God. So let's look at the question, what everyone needs to know about God. Now, in another book I've written called 10 Principles for Successful Christian Living, we emphasize that the first and foremost principle for believers to live successfully in God's sight is to get a biblical view of God. What do we mean by this? Basically, it means that we need to see God as the Bible portrays him, the God that can do anything which is consistent with his character. This is how we should understand the God of Scripture. And this should be our starting point as we examine the person of the God of Scripture. Now, in our book, What Everyone Needs to Know About God, there are two important sections here. One section is the attributes of God that belong to him alone, or God's unique characteristics. And then the next part, the personal attributes of God, what humans and God have in common. Now, we look at these after introducing the subject, and our introduction reads as follows. What is the God of the Bible like? What are his characteristics? What can we know about him? The Bible describes the attributes or characteristics of God, the only God who exists. It alone tells us what the one true God is like. Unfortunately, human beings have created God in their own image. The God they create is one that reflects their own nature. God is manipulated to fit the needs of the person creating him. Add to this, there are many Christians that have a deficient view of God, sad to say. They also manipulate the concept of God to fit their own desires. The proper perspective is to find out what the Bible has to say about the character of God. His attributes have been revealed to us in Scripture. Therefore, it's essential that we examine the attributes or the perfections of God. And this section of our book introduces us to this topic and brings us to our timeless truth. So the question we're going to look at today, what are the attributes of God or God's perfections, and how do we discover them? All right. What is the God of the Bible like? What are his attributes? What does the Bible have to say about the character or nature of God? Now, this is the first question we need to address as we attempt to understand what the scripture teaches about the God revealed in the Bible. Well, let's start by defining the word attribute. To begin with, we need to know what we're talking about when we use this word attribute. What do we mean when we speak of his attributes? An attribute of God can be defined as an essential and permanent characteristic of his nature. They're also called God's perfections. Therefore, when we use the phrase the attributes of God, we are referring to the characteristics of God that he alone has revealed to us. Now, what do we learn about God's attributes? How are we able to determine what God is like? Well, there's a few important observations you and I need to make. Number one, we can know certain things about God from looking at the world he created. We are able to know certain things about the God of the Bible and his attributes by just looking at the world around us. Indeed, from looking at the natural world, what do we see? We see he's a loving creator who makes all things fit perfectly together. In fact, we can see that God is a God of perfection when we examine the visible world. And as we've said before, from the smallest particle to the largest star, either microscopically or telescopically, what do we see? We see design and purpose everywhere. This tells us something about the Creator. Number two, and here's the crucial answer to this question. We need God's written word to know specifics about him. However, our knowledge of the attributes of the God of the Bible is mainly found in Scripture. In the Bible, God's character is specifically revealed to us. Many things about God's nature or character, such as the doctrine of the Trinity, the nature and extent of God's knowledge, and God's intimate involvement with humanity, can only be known through a reading of the Bible, through a reading of Scripture. While the physical world can give us some insight into God's character, it is the revelation in Scripture that explains who he really is and what he is like. Consequently, and here's the key, we do not assign characteristics to him. He reveals them to us. Therefore, apart from special revelation, we would know next to nothing about the character of God. This is why God's revelation of himself in the Bible is so important. Without it, you and I would be lost. Number three, here's the great news. We do not have to be ignorant of who he is. In fact, God's revelation of himself, humanity without God's revelation of himself, humanity would stumble around in darkness. The Apostle Paul wrote to the Ephesians about the darkness in which the ungodly find themselves. This was you and me before we came to Christ. Ephesians 4:17 and 18. Here's what he wrote. With the Lord's authority, let me say this: live no longer as the ungodly do, for they are hopelessly confused. Their closed minds are full of darkness. They are far away from the life of God because they have shut their minds and hardened their hearts against him. Ephesians 4:17 through 18. The good news is, unfortunately, we don't have to stumble in darkness, do we? God has put us into the light as far as his character is concerned, in the words of Scripture. Now, Jesus also emphasized this truth. He made it clear that we can only know the living God to the degree that he reveals himself to us. He said the following is recorded in Matthew chapter 11. My Father has turned everything over to me. Only the Father knows the Son, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son is willing to reveal him. Matthew 11:27. God has been willing to reveal himself to you and I so that we can know what he is like, as well as what he expects from us. And again, this is God's revelation to us, not our guessing about what he is like. Now, which brings us to our next point. Human reason is inadequate to know these things. Consequently, unaided human reason without divine revelation is not an adequate way to understand the character of God. When left to our own ideas about the nature or character of God, each of us sadly goes our own way. The Bible informs us that through philosophical reasoning, humanity cannot really understand God. We can't. He wrote to the Corinthians, that is the Apostle Paul, and put it this way. For since in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, God decided through the foolishness of our proclamation to save those who believe. 1 Corinthians 1:21. So, unaided human reason ends up making God into the image which we think he should be. It does not tell us who he truly is. It does not at all. In contrast to unaided human wisdom or reason, divine revelation is the only source that informs us of who God of the Bible is, in fact, who he is and what he is like. So what do we have to do? Well, very simple. We must go to the scriptures alone if we want to know God's attributes, namely his permanent characteristics. There are no other sources, none whatsoever. All right. So this is one of the important timeless truths that we should know and understand. Therefore, it's critical that we study the Bible to discover what it says about the God whom we love and serve. So in our book, What Everyone Needs to Know About God lays out these basic truths about his nature and character. It'll be a very helpful resource to study and learn about these many timeless truths concerning the living God. And we encourage you to study this and know it, because when you find out about God's characteristics, and again, they come in two categories, the ones that are unique to him alone. Then there's certain characteristics that we human beings share with God, although obviously not to the same degree. Really helps us understand God better and helps us understand ourselves better. So we highly recommend you looking into this subject. All right, I'm Don Stewart. Thank you for watching this edition of Timeless Truths from the Bible. We'll be back again next time with another one. Until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless you.